let's understand the current perfection, the enemies, their mechanics. And let's start with the newest enemies who came when Amphoid is released, and they all have one main mechanic common, and that is these war armor mechanics. That's how they are called. These tags right here, as you can see in this specific wave, they all have it. In another node, this big boy has it too, and of course Strife himself has it too. And luckily it works pretty simple, those tags, since the most important thing to really know about these tags is that when you reduce those tags to 0, the character that reduced those tags to 0 gets a little bit of energy. And then of course the question arises, how do you reduce those tags to begin with? Well, every time you attack an enemy with those tags, they lose 1 stack. So the character that reduced those tags to 0 gets energy. What else? Well, the enemy takes a big chunk of damage, and then also its action gets delayed, and also every time you attack an enemy who has 0 tags, takes additional damage with that attack. And they also just naturally take more damage, since when they have armor stacks, they get reduced damage. But this is really all you need to know about those stacks. But there are enemies who manipulate those stacks a little bit, just like this enemy right here, who has an ability that increases other enemies who have war armor stacks, their stacks, by 2. So as you can see, this enemy has cast that ability, which is indicated by this yellow ring around him. And instead of having 2 out of 3 stacks this enemy, he has now 4 out of 5 stacks, as you can see. Just like with this enemy and this enemy too, which is the same enemy as this one. So how do you make sure then that these enemies don't have these 2 extra war armor stacks? Well, that is by reducing this enemy's war armor stacks to 0. When it happens, all the other enemies will return to their normal war armor stacks then. So this would be also 2 out of 3, and this would be 1 out of 2. The takeaway with this enemy is, you see this weird ring around him, reduce his war armor stacks to 0, and you will have an easier time to reduce other enemies their war armor stacks to 0. And now we also got this enemy right here. What does he do? Well, he has a normal single target attack, and this enemy right here also has a blast attack. That is nothing special. The unique ability of this enemy is that he gives a random enemy a buff which increases their speed and damage dealt. So you will just target a random enemy, let's say this trash can, and give him increased speed and increased damage dealt. But the cool thing is though, when you kill this enemy, the ally that killed this enemy will also get this increased speed and increased damage. So try to make sure that when you kill this enemy, that you kill him with an DPS, which happens like 99% of the time luckily. And the last enemy we got is the trash can. What does the trash can do? Well, he does single target attacks, and he increases his attack every turn, which can one-shot you at one point. So we need to make sure we weakness break him and not kill him, as he's quite tanky. And how do we weakness break him? Well, as you can see, he has no weakness types. And how do we apply weakness types to him? Well, he gets the weakness type of the character that attacked him. So if I attack him with Remembers MC, he will get the ice weakness type. But he can hold up to 2 weakness types at a time. And luckily in our case, you only have 2 weakness types in our team. So he would get the imaginary and ice weakness type. But if you had 3 weakness types in your team, do make sure you apply the 2 weakness types of the allies who do the most consistent attacks. So if I had, like, let's say, no Remembrance MC here, but a Robin, I wouldn't want to attack this trash can with a Robin basic attack. Because when Robin casts her ult, she won't be doing anything for a couple of cycles. And then this enemy would be stuck with that physical weakness type. So weakness breaking him would be a pain in the ass. So that's just a thing you need to keep in mind. And now we got the second wave, where we also have a new enemy, which is this one. But he doesn't have those war armor stacks. But he has one interesting thing, and that is that he has an ability where you can give a random enemy a thing called Stormrite. We will call it Storm for now. And the thing with this Storm is this. When the enemy with this Stormrite ends his turn, he will immediately get another action again. But it rarely happens. Since how do we remove this Storm thing on this enemy? Well, that is when you weakness break the enemy. When you weakness break him, he will lose that Storm thing on his head, and he won't do the extra action at the end of his turn. As easy as that. And this enemy also has a single target attack, nothing special. And by the way, this Storm thingy is indicated by this weird tornado at the feet of enemy. As you can see, this robot here has this like tornado thing going on beneath his feet. So I know at the end of this robot, his turn, he will do another action again. And as you can see, this robot is happy. And what does this robot do? Well, when he gets a turn and he is happy, he will give a random ally quite a decent amount of energy. But if he is angry, he will attack all allies and reduce their energy by a little bit, which is something you really don't want to happen. So how do we make sure he becomes happy, this robot? Well, when you attack him, when he is angry, he goes into the happy state. But when you attack him and he is happy, he will go into the angry state. So it's basically a cycle. But unfortunately, when this enemy has this Storm thing on his head, which is indicated by this Storm thing beneath his feet, we know at the end of his turn, he will do another action again. And we see he is happy. So when he gets a turn, he will give a random ally energy. Okay, nice. So you might think, oh, he will do that twice because of this storm state beneath his feet, which gives him an next action. But unfortunately, no, since he won't give the happy energy buff twice in a row. So what he will do now is just turn angry. That's it. But if he was angry and he had this storm state thing beneath his feet, he would reduce everyone's energy by a little bit. So he can do 2 angry attacks back to back, but he cannot do 2 happy energy regeneration buffs to us back to back. He will just turn angry on his second action, unfortunately. And now we got this robot right here. All we really need to know about him is that with his attacks, he has a chance to apply bleed on you. But the only interesting thing about him is that he can go into this mode, which is indicated right here. He's glowing red, and he locks onto a random ally. And when he attacks that ally, and that ally has no shield, then he will do a follow-up attack to another random ally, which is, let's say, the Herta. That's it. So the only thing we need to keep in mind with him is that we would like to have a cleanser, since his bleed stacks do hurt quite a lot. Or you need to have Aventurin, which gives your whole team quite a lot of effect resistance, so those bleeds don't even get applied to begin with. But Lucha in this case can also work, or whoever you got. And now we got the last wave of the first node. As you can see, we have the same enemy here as in the first node, and he works here exactly the same. He has blast attacks, and he has an ability where he can increase the max armor stacks of another ally by 2, as you can see right here. How do we get rid of it? Just reduce this guy's war armor stacks to 0, and this boy will go back to 1 out of 2 again. That's it. And then we got this small bug. He just has single target attacks, which has a chance to apply wind shear on you, and nothing more actually special about him regarding his abilities. Well, when you kill him, he will explode and do a little bit of damage on everyone and applies vulnerability on all the enemies, which means they take increased damage, which is pretty nice. But the real enemy in this wave is actually, of course, this big bug here. He isn't really that interesting actually. He just has attacks which have a chance to apply wind shear on you or trigger wind shear on you. Nothing special. The only really special thing is that he can go into this charging state, as you can see right here in the action bar. And when he gets a turn, he will do like a big AoE attack, which applies quite a lot of wind shear on all your allies. And it will remove all the CC from the small bugs, which is something quite noteworthy. So they recover from weakness break. If they were imprisoned by Lucha, they are not imprisoned anymore, or if they were frozen, they are not frozen anymore. But in reality, he almost never does this big AoE attack, since by that time he's already weakness broken, which means he goes out of the state. And if he can just do consistent AoE attacks, he won't even get to this point. I only got to this point because I was just waiting and seeing what he would do the whole time to understand his kit. So in practicality, the probability is low that he will even be able to cast this enhanced charging attack. So now we can go to the second node, the first wave. The most irritating enemy in this wave is this soldier right here. Because all he does is single target attacks, which delays the action of the attacked ally. So if you were speed tuning, he would throw that off. So if an important ally gets attacked by him the whole time, I just restart. So this is just unlucky RNG. If let's say Hereby got attacked here, I can afford it. I want her to be slow. So it's not a really big problem. But if actually I got attacked, it would make getting more points a bit more difficult. But the focus is kill this enemy before he can attack you. Also, don't forget the trash can, of course. You want to weakness break him. How do we weakness break him? To begin with, well, by attacking him with the weakness type we want to apply to him. And as I said in the first note in the first wave with the trash can, don't apply weakness types to him of allies who do not do consistent attacks, since he can just have 2 weakness types. So in this case, I would not want to apply imaginary weakness type to him, since one, Sunday is never attacking. Aventurin is yes, but by looking at Aventurin his ultimate, it is just only at the half. And I know Tibi will do way more actions than Aventurin in this situation then, since she literally has just one tiny bit of energy needed to cast her ultimate, and she will do follow-up attacks when I cast Sunday's ultimate. And when I cast Sunday's ultimate on Aglia, Aglia will also be able to cast her ultimate in a second, which means Tibi will do another follow-up attack. So I already have 3 attacks done on this trash can by the time Aventurin gets his ult. So the takeaway is, like I said, apply weakness types on a trash can of allies who do consistent attacks. And now we got the other enemy, which is this yellow enemy right here. There's really nothing really special about this enemy. He just does attacks. When you see this enemy like glowing yellow, just know that he will do a single target attack, which will do more damage than usual. That's it, nothing special. Just focus your attention on the soldiers and the trash can, and you will be good to go. And now the second wave of the second node. First of all, this enemy Nothing special really, just does some attacks. Just got the sustain through it. Literally nothing worth mentioning. It only does single target attacks. That's all you need to know. Sometimes it does more damage. And this bird enemy, we already discussed. What it does is that it gives a stack called Storm to a random enemy. When that enemy with the storm ends its turn, it will get another action. That's it. And how do we remove this storm stack so that the enemy doesn't get an extra action? Just weakness break that enemy and that storm stack will be lost. That's it. But the really noteworthy enemy of this wave is, of course, this new enemy right here. And he has like these sweeping attacks, which only attacks like the first 3 and last 3 characters of your team. So no action delays or something. The only really interesting thing about him is that he can go into this charging state. As you can see, he's holding his sword quite cool and he's glowing red in the action bar right here. And we are getting this weird icon above our head. And what this means is basically that when he attacks us with this charging attack, all the damage it does will be distributed. That is what these icons above our heads mean. The damage will be distributed and we will be getting the vulnerability debuff on our heads. So how do we make sure that he does not do this charging attack? Well, by just weakness breaking him. When you weakness break him, you won't be able to do this charging attack. As easy as that. And now let's get to the last wave where we have Strife and the other little enemies. Let's start with this little enemy. He's quite interesting. And what he does is this. When he attacks you, let's say attacks Sunday, and he has more than 0 stacks, then he has a chance to apply reverb on you. And why is this reverb important? Well, when you get attacked again by him or another enemy and you have reverb on your head, then your action will be delayed and you cannot do anything until the start of your next turn, which is a pain, but it never has really happened to me. Since probability is so low that he applies this reverb on you, that it would be quite noteworthy if he managed to do that. And another thing that is even less likely to happen is that when he attacks you, let's say Aventurin, and he has 0 stacks of this, then he will apply reverb on himself, which like literally never even happened. Since when he has 0 of these stacks, he takes big chunk of damage, and it means he already got attacked 3 times. So that means he will never even get the chance to attack you with the 0 stacks, since he would already have been weakness broken or dead. But if it happens, he applies that reverb onto himself, and if you attack him, then his action will be delayed, and he cannot do until his next turn. Not that he could do anything to begin with though, but that is how this enemy works. And then we got the same yellow enemy here. Like I said, when you see him glowing yellow, expect a big single target attack from him, that's it. And he has the blast attack, which doesn't do that much damage. But let's get to the elephant in the room, and that is Strife. This pure fiction version of him is quite simple compared to his previous version in MOC, where he also had this cool looking angel behind him, or whatever it was. But this one is simple. He literally has just some AoE attacks, some even bouncing attacks I saw. Nothing that hinders us too much. The only really interesting thing is when he goes into a charging state, which is indicated by him glowing a little bit more yellow than usual, as you can see. Well, his lance stand is a bit more yellow, and of course his action bar is red. When he goes into this charging state, his war armor stacks go from 7 to 12. As you can see, we have 12 here, and he had 7 at first. And all our allies will get these things above our head. Well, the first noteworthy thing is when you reduce his stacks to 0, he will give all your allies energy instead of the ally that reduced those stacks to 0, compared to the normal war armor mechanics. So yes, his action will be delayed, he will take a big chunk of damage, he will receive more damage to begin with, he will take additional damage every time you attack him, but now everyone will get a little bit of energy. So not only the character that reduced it to 0. And luckily it is even easier to reduce his stacks to 0 since, as you can see, we have this weird thing above our character's head. And what this means is this. Every stack you have of this, you will have increased energy regeneration, and he will do more damage for every stack you have. And depending on how many stacks of this thing you have, you will reduce Strife its stacks to the equal amount. So as you can see, we have 1, so we'll reduce its stacks by 1. But if we had 2, then we would reduce it by 2. And then the question arises, how do we get more stacks then? Well, when you skill or cast your ultimate, you will get plus 1 stack. But unfortunately, you can just hold up to 2 stacks. But luckily, these bonuses are increased though. So we get more energy regeneration rate and more damage. But unfortunately, we don't get to have these stacks all the time, since the next attack of Strife will remove all the things above our head. All of these will go away when he gets a turn. Regardless of whether it was this charged attack of his or the attack after we had put him out of the charging attack. And how do we put him out of this charging attack state? Well, when he reduces his stacks to 0. So if you reduce his stacks to 0, he will go out of this state and he won't do this charging attack again. Still, that attack will remove all the things above our head. And it is quite easy to reduce his stacks to 0 when he's in this charging state because of these stacks which can reduce it by 2 the whole time. But if you do not manage to reduce his attacks to 0 and he attacks with his charging attack, well, it does a big AoE attack, and he has a chance to imprison your allies. And when that happens, I just restart. But I think by that time you already would have gotten like 30 or close to 40k points in this node, since you only need 60k points in total. But if you really need those extra points because your first node got 20k points barely, which means you need to get 40k points here. And if he is able to cast this charge attack, which has a chance to imprison you, and you get imprisoned, then I just restart, since even if you class that imprisonment, your action would have already been delayed. Alright, now I want you to remember these things though. You can play with Castoris in this Pure Fiction, since the last day of this Pure Fiction will be on Sunday the 27th of April. And Castoris will come on the 9th of April. But if you are still unsure whether you want to summon for Castoris or not because you don't know who the characters of 3.3 are, well, luckily, it is expected that on the 25th of March, the 3.3 drip marketing will come, since every 42 days the drip marketings come. The same case with Castoris, every 42 days a new version starts. So it's expected that Castoris will come that day, and expected that the drip marketing will happen on 25th of March. But if you're still unsure whether Castoris is a good pick for you or not, or whether you want to save Anax or not, well, on the 28th of March, the 3.2 live stream is expected, since Honkai Starter keeps up that 42-day cycle the whole time, where they will go into deeper detail in Anaxa and Castoris, their kit, and the upcoming events, which means you can make a more educated decision on whether you want to summon for Castoris or not, or save up for Anax or not, or whether you want to even summon for Mayday and Huho or not, who will be coming in a couple of days at the time of recording. So my point is basically, and I always keep saying this, you still have a lot of time to clear this Pure Fiction. You don't need to stress. The focus is to just get your limited time rewards of this Pure Fiction, and you're good to go. You can also just ignore all the enemy mechanics and just raw dog it if you got a crazy team. You just got to do what's the most fun for you, since you're the boss. So I thank you for paying attention, and see you the next time. Bye.